Before we get started? Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Are you ready to introduce ourselves? See? Well, ASMC is in so we're going to be sitting here. And then I'll put in the introduction. Just kind of agenda item.
No bike and scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some kind of.
Yeah.
Some kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get this over here. So and you have a format, right? Bring some water. The issues. Water is there. Right. Yeah. So we have water here.
You know what?
Water.
What about it?
Oh.
I got no water. She doesn't speak sign language very good.
Are you recording for the college or for one of the campaigns? College. Okay, thank you. Can we get a copy afterwards?
I have to get through a computer really fast.
Oh, no, I don't mean like today, but at some point, like, would you be able to have a copy?
Sure. Write down your email.
Certainly. Thank you so much.
And also name check.
Sure thing.
Yeah, that's what this is for.
We just want copies. We're with the campaign. We just want to see, you know, if there's a nice moment.
Oh, you're with Adam's campaign?
Yeah, my name's Ryan Heller. Steve, nice to meet you.
Yeah, they're all good photos, and then we have to.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, well, I want to welcome everyone to the Youth Candidates Forum for the California 21st Assembly District. We have the two candidates in attendance, and I'll provide a brief introduction of both of them. But before we do, and get started, I'd like to inform you of the schedule for this afternoon. What we're going to do is, it's going to be a three-section. It's going to be a three-part section, and what I'm going to do is, during the beginning, we will have Mr. Jack Mobley, who will do a 15-minute introduction and discussion of the issues. When he is done, then Mr. Adam Gray will then follow up and have his 15 minutes of introduction and discussion of the issues. After which we'll have 30 minutes where you, the audience, will be able to ask either one of the two candidates questions. So you may ask anything you have. I will be selecting the people who have questions, so if you can raise your hand, I'll go ahead and select you, and you'll be able to stand up and ask a question. Please say your first name, perhaps your affiliation with your college, or your affiliation, whether you're a staff member here, a student at Merced College, or a student at UC Merced. Once we're done with the 30-minute question segment, we will provide each candidate with 10 minutes of a closing statement, and at that point, Mr. Adam Gray will go first, followed by Mr. Jack Mobley, and then at that point, we'll end the candidates forum, and if either one of the two candidates wishes to stay, we encourage them to stay and perhaps meet with each one of you one-on-one to have a little FaceTime. Okay? Okay, so I first want to start off with Mr. Adam Gray, and I've taken this from his website, selected a few comments here. Adam Gray is a small business owner and former legislative aide. He was elected in November 2012 for the 21st Assembly District, which includes all of Merced County and parts of Stanislaus County, including parts of Modesto, and communities of Ceres, Newman, and Patterson. Adam attended public school in Merced and was a member of the Golden Valley High School's first graduating class. He worked his way through college, splitting time between the dairy supply store and Merced Community College before furthering his education at UC Santa Barbara. Adam lives in Merced, where he manages a small public affairs and communications firm, and served as a course assistant / lecturer on the state legislature at UC Merced. And now a little bit about Mr. Jack Mobley. Jack Mobley started as a Service Master cleaning franchise owner in Merced 24 years ago, while serving in the U.S. Air Force Reserves. Jack served our country in the United States Air Force for 22 years. He's a decorated veteran of both Desert Storm and Kosovo. As an Air Force reservist, he was involved in 2001 in the 9/11 response operations. Jack's Air Force service brought him to Merced, where he met and married Sandra Fletcher in 1987. Jack's local service includes the Merced County Planning Commission, Merced County Chamber of Commerce, Lions Club, Merced Boosters, and the Greater Merced Chamber of Commerce. Jack has a BS degree in accounting and has worked in a bank as a commercial loan officer. Okay, with that introduction, I'd like to look at Mr. Jack Mobley and allow him his 15 minutes for introduction and discussion of the issues. And we do have a timer set, so if you could just please be aware of that. Okay. All right. So you may begin when you'd like.
Okay, I'm Jack Mobley, running for state assembly. A little bit about my background: originally from Tennessee, born in Mississippi, raised in Tennessee. Went to UT Knoxville, got a degree in accounting. When I graduated from UT, I decided to go into accounting. I got hired by the firm that I was working for while I was in college. I put myself through school, waiting tables, and working in the accounting firm. So I went to work for this accounting firm for about a year and a half, and then I decided that Knoxville was a great place. I love Knoxville, but there was a whole world out there that I wanted to see, and felt I needed to do that before I settled down. So I joined the Air Force. Went off to navigator training at Merced Air Force Base. Became a KC-135 navigator. Spent 4 winters at Grand Forks, North Dakota. Wasn't there a whole lot because I was traveling everywhere. I got on every airplane heading out of town. I flew all over the world, did all kinds of different stuff. Came back to Grand Forks, got an assignment here at Castle as an instructor in 1986. Came down here, met my wife, Sandra, got married. We moved back to Tennessee for 2 years, where I was a loan officer in a bank and flew in the Tennessee Air Guard. But back we came to Merced in 1989. When I got here, Sandra got hired right away to teach school, resume teaching school. She has 25 years in the public school system teaching junior high. And I thought I'd get back into banking or go back into accounting or something. I moved out here, I didn't have a job. But I'd always wanted to have a business, and so I got to looking at different franchise opportunities. And there was, concurrent with that, there was a large Southeast Asian congregation in the church that I was going to, First Baptist Church, Mien. They were the original refugees from Vietnam, fought with the CIA. They're proud people, but they didn't know the language, a lot of them. They didn't know the culture, and they were existing on the system, and they didn't want to. They wanted to support themselves and their family. So, kind of a win-win situation. I said, I'll start a janitorial company, and I'll put these people to work. So, I bought a franchise of the Service Master Company, and I started cleaning toilets and hauling trash for the best of them. And I did that for about 6 months and built the business up to where I could start hiring people more and more, and I started hiring them. I also, about that time, got hired by the Air Force Reserve to continue flying. And I've been in business about, I started the business in April of '90. I got hired by the reserves in July, and in August, Iraq went across the border in Kuwait, and I was gone for a year. that was an exciting time to be alive. But the business stayed together. I came back, we resumed, and fast forward 24 years later, I got activated for 9 months for Kosovo. That was another exciting time to be alive. The business continued to grow. We bought 2 more franchises, one in Madera and one in Fresno. Currently, I think we're right at about 80 employees. I have managers and supervisors and all that level of management between me and the toilets now, so I don't have to worry about that. But I've noticed a change. Well, first off, growing up, my dad was involved in local politics back in Knoxville. He was on the Republican Central Committee. He had toyed with the idea of running for governor at one point. We had a close friend that ran for governor and won. And I grew up in that kind of an environment, that kind of political this and that. And I just enjoyed thinking about making differences through the political process. So when we came out here, California was the place to come if you had an idea. You could come here, you had a little money to put together, and you can make a go of it. You can make a difference. You could have a thriving business. And that's the way it was when I came here and started the business in '89. Over the years, the last 24 years, it's been tougher and tougher to operate. There's more regulation, more taxes, and it's become harder to do business in California. And we're seeing that with the number of businesses that are leaving the state and taking the jobs with them. And I want to be a part of reversing that trend. We have California now is California. When I was growing up in Tennessee, we took the California Achievement Test in school. Why? Because it was the best. It was the best system of testing kids, and we just adopted it in Tennessee. Now, we're 45th in the nation, I think, in education. We're the most impoverished state in the union, California. It's not West Virginia, it's not Alabama, it's California. That's ridiculous. We got the highest unemployment. We're the highest taxed, most overly regulated state in the union. And I want to be part of that change. I want California to be a destination state again, and it's not right now. Time and time again, you open up the paper, and another company is moving from here and going to Texas. I heard a story about a large waste management operation in Sacramento, $1 billion a year company, and the CEO got a little box from the governor in Texas. And he opened up the box, and there was a Rolex watch in there, and a little note that said, "It's time to move to Texas," and they're gone. But that's why I'm running. I want to be part of the membership up there that has the business experience. That we don't have enough people in Sacramento that have, as I like to say, that have the experience of laying in bed and wondering how you're going to make payroll, how you're going to do the things that need to be done to make your business grow. So I want to bring that to the legislature, and I think I can be very effective. So I can babble on, but that's as much as I wanted to say to start with.
Okay. We're going to reset the time, and we'll give Mr. Adam Gray the 15 minutes. So, ready.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for being part of this forum this afternoon, providing candidates an opportunity to visit with you and share our thoughts and ideas on this campaign and on the future of California. Welcome to those folks who are joining us remotely. Appreciate your participation as well. As was stated, my name is Adam Gray. I was born and raised here in California and spent my whole life here in Merced. My family was involved in agriculture, not uncommon in this part. Do we have a lot of Merced folks here? How many people were born and raised here in Merced? We got a handful. And how many people here are students? Quite a few students as well. It's great to see the interest in the state and the future, and certainly in the public policy that very much affects all of us that's done at the state legislature. So I was born and raised here. My grandparents farmed, and they also, my grandfather started a company called Merced Dairy Supply, and it was a feed store, a dairy supply company. If you ever go out to a dairy, all the milking equipment, we would sell and install that equipment, service it, as well as provide ag supplies through the feed store. So I grew up working with my family there, and went to both Merced High School and Golden Valley High School. I was actually in the first graduating class of Golden Valley High School when they built that when I was a junior. And then after high school, I had the opportunity actually to attend Merced College here, just like many of you are doing. It gave me a great opportunity to get some education, and then further my education after that at UC Santa Barbara. I did a transfer in there and spent my final 2 years down in Santa Barbara and studied political science. During that time, during the summers, I got the opportunity to intern with our congressmen, with our assemblymen, and ultimately, upon graduation, was able to get a job working with the California State Assembly for then Assemblymember Dennis Cardoza, who happened to be the chair of the Ag Committee, something obviously I had a lifelong interest in. I got to work on public policy, not just in the area of agriculture, but across many spectrums of things that affect our community. That led to me working in and around the state legislature for about 12 years. Worked for more than a half dozen different members and committees and activities, and got to be involved in public safety policy, got to be involved in ag policy, got to be involved in the budget, the way California works. I learned certainly a whole lot about Sacramento, about how it affects our community and what can be done to change it. The other thing I learned during that time, we had imposed term limits in California. And so our legislators who go up to represent us were serving 3 two-year terms in the state assembly. So you got to serve a total of 6 years. Now before that, you could serve as many terms as you wanted to, but post the term limit initiative that California voters approved, folks would be there for 6 years. Now what was good about that is we got one of the most diverse legislatures in California history. What used to be a body of almost exclusively older white men was now a body that had people from all over California. It was diverse, and it really reflected who California is and who we are in a much better way. So that was a really positive thing that came out of that. The less positive thing is that people who really understood how the community worked, how government works, and could do things and affect things and hold government accountable for us were in and out the door every 6 years. And why does that matter? Well, for one, it matters with the balance of power in government, right? Because you've got 3 different branches of government. And when somebody gets hired, like let's use an example like the DMV. When somebody gets hired at the DMV, they might be there for 30 years. A whole career, they're not going anywhere. But the legislators who hold the DMV accountable to make sure they're serving you well are gone in 6 years. And so I saw this as a big problem. And when I got the opportunity to run for office and represent my hometown, I thought, well, I've had experience with the legislature. I know how California government works, and I can take that experience and fight for my community. Now, at the same time that I ran for office, California voters changed the law again. And now, under the new term limit laws, people can serve up to 12 years in one house or another, but I mean both got bicameral legislature, so there's a Senate and the Assembly. So we allowed folks to serve longer terms. Now, the other electoral reform we made in California was we changed to a top 2 primary. What that means is instead of every election for statewide office resulting in a Republican and a Democrat, which is what we have here today in this race, but instead of that always being the case, the top 2 vote getters in a primary would advance to the general election. So you could have 2 Democrats, you could have 2 Republicans, you could have 2 independents. You know, it allowed for a change. And that's a good change because it allowed us to get beyond just voting our party, just thinking about party politics, but rather thinking about the community. And that was another big goal of mine in going to Sacramento, was to change the culture. Because every one of us reads about, hears about what's going on in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country, where there's a lot of fighting and a lot of disagreement, but not a lot of working together to find solutions. It's good to disagree. This is a democracy and we should disagree. It's good to get Jack and I up here having a debate about public policy and how we feel about different subjects, and then you all going out casting a vote. But it's not good to just disagree or try to stop government from working or just not coming together for the sake of fighting and just blaming the other person that you don't agree with. Right? We've all got to work together with shared values and come up with solutions that may not be perfect for us, but are a compromise that everybody can live with, and that's a good thing. And so I went out in 2011 and started running for office, and I secured, part of that process, you go out and secure lots of endorsements from teachers and firefighters and police officer organizations and student groups and faculty. And you make your case as to what you want to do for California. The case I made is I want to go up there. I want to make it a place that works together. I want to work with Republicans, I work with independents, I want to work with other Democrats. And I want to find solutions for our state. And I want to invest in the future. Right? I'm not someone, you hear a lot of politicians talk about we need to create jobs, right? We've been in a very difficult recession, a lot of challenges. We need to go out and create jobs. Well, government doesn't create jobs, but what government does is it builds the infrastructure that allows for economic growth, right? And what I mean by that is we invest in our institutions of higher education. We invest in our roads. We build things like roads, dams, bridges. We build schools. We build hospitals. These are the kind of investments you make that create a construct for people to do business, to do like Jack did, to start his business here in our community. Those are good things, right? And we've gotten away from, my grandparents, we just had the honor flight out in Atwater, California, former Castle Air Force Base, and all of our World War II veterans, I don't know if you guys read about it, or maybe some of you attended it. All of our World War II veterans flew back to DC to be recognized for the great service they did for this country. They saved us from the war. They saved the world. And they saved this country. And they came home on top of that, and they built this country. Many of our institutions of higher education, our roads, our bridges, our dams, all these things we're talking about, they built those things with their money. They invested it. And then what we proceeded to do as a state and as a nation is live off that investment for decades. I call it the credit card of infrastructure. And we maxed it out. And we didn't re-up our investment. And so I wanted to go to Sacramento and say, let's reinvest in California so we can grow in a way that's good. So there's opportunity for all of you out here, for people in our community. And that means we need to grow our universities. We need to build more roads. We need to build more dams. We need to do these kinds of things. And we need to have people that want to make those investments. That and changing the culture, I thought, were the first big steps in changing the way Sacramento works and changing the way our community can find success, because we do have a lot of poverty. We live in one of the most impoverished parts of California. You may read that California is leading the country out of the recession, and that's true. If you look at the economic data, you'll find that we are leading the country out of the recession. But those of us here in the Central Valley are not. Many of the industries that support our economy here continue to struggle. And so that economic success and recovery needs to be broad enough for everybody. And we need to share in that with the rest of California. And so we need to continue to make those investments and fight for those investments here. And we're at a disadvantage, because all too often the debates in Sacramento become about being a Republican or being a Democrat. It's mostly Democrats up there. There's some Republicans. But for us, it needs to be about the Central Valley, right? We've got some Republican leaders, like State Senator Anthony Cannella, who I work very closely with. In fact, I work so closely with Senator Cannella that I'm right now engaged in a TV commercial campaign and a radio commercial campaign with him, trying to build water storage, trying to get Prop 1, which is the water bond, passed so that we can make some investments that help agriculture, that help our community. And we're putting our partisanship aside. We've actually ticked off the whole state of California as far as Republican and Democrats are concerned, and mad at both of us because we're working together. But that's what people should do, is work together for what's good for the community, what's good for you guys, what's going to help us, and what's going to help us grow. So after my first 2 years serving as your representative, it's been a great honor, and I get to go for a job interview next Tuesday, and I hope that you all re-up my contract and give me another opportunity to serve you for 2 more years. But in this first 2 years, we've brought a water bond to the ballot, something that hasn't been done in 4 decades. And we're giving the voters an opportunity to approve that and move forward with a big investment. And we've done it by working together, Republicans and Democrats. And those are the promises I made when I ran for office in 2012. I'm really proud of the work I've done. We've made huge investments to bring more education funding to the Central Valley through something called the LCFF. That's going to allow for our K-12 schools to be more successful. And we've had little victories, because an important part of serving your community is being available to work with your constituents one-on-one, community by community. You know, when I got a phone call that when Rand had a well out, myself, the county supervisors immediately engaged in working with the local government to get them the emergency funding from the state of California so that they could get a new well in place, and so that the school that was served by that well wouldn't suffer. When my constituents out in Santa Nella had a mobile home park fire, and nobody could figure out how to save the basically circuit board and deliver electricity to the mobile homes, because it was a unique situation where each lot owner owned a piece of this board, and the government wasn't responsible, and individual lot owners weren't exactly responsible, and nobody could figure out how to fix it. Meanwhile, you had families who didn't have a refrigerator or power for their families. And we went and worked with private sector companies, and we got donated labor, and we went out there and we got that fixed, right? Those are the important kind of things. When people call you and they have a problem with government, whether it be the DMV or anything else, it's my job to be there to help them negotiate that problem. So I've tried to serve this community with that one-on-one attention for each individual constituent, and also advance some really important causes like the water bond, and do that in a bipartisan way. Those are the promises I made. Those are the promises I tried to keep. I really just want to commend this group for organizing a forum so we can debate the issues. There's always a lot of important issues. And Jack and I have very different perspectives on government. You know, I'm very much a political moderate. Jack's very much a conservative Republican who thinks we shouldn't invest in these types of big ticket items, that we should cut government, that we should cut taxes. And I don't disagree with him that we need to be careful not to overtax ourselves. I don't know that I definitely agree with giving Rolexes with government money to CEOs of companies like he talked about in Texas. But I do agree with him that we should fight hard to go out and recruit more companies to stay here, that we should do more for the economy to succeed, for businesses to cut through the red tape of government. Those are good points, and those are the kind of things that kind of accountability you need your legislator to engage in. So I look forward to the discussion. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And with that, maybe we can get to some questions from the audience.
Okay, thank you both, the both of you. And I'm going to now turn to the audience, and if you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll call on you so that we can try to get through here. Katie?
Hello, I'm Katie Morrill. I'm the student trustee here at Merced College. I have a two-part question for each of you. If elected, how will you reach out to the people in the 21st district who experience poverty, poor health, and unemployment? And second, what will you do for the people in our district to make it a better place to be?
How will I reach out to the people that
In our district.
in our district? I do not want to, I don't want to be a Sacramento animal. I want to be in the district. I've already gone to Amtrak to see about riding the train back and forth, and how much it would cost to drive and all those kinds of things. I want to be back here in the district. I'm not a party kind of guy. I want to be back in here, walking the district, talking to the people, seeing what the challenges are. I would be available to go to any public forum, meet with any group to see what their issues were, to help them work through it. If there's help they need, the office would coordinate. Adam was talking about doing that. I do the same thing. These are my people. I want to be a servant of the people. I don't care about being a rock star. I don't care if I walk down the street and anybody knows who I am. But I have grown to love this state, and I have seen it change. I have seen that it's getting tougher and tougher to raise a family. It's getting tougher and tougher to to pay the bills, and I want to help the people help themselves to grow the economy so that we can have the good jobs, so that people can support themselves and support their families. What was it? Tell me the other part of your question.
What will you do to make it a better place to be?
I think the fundamental issue is the economy. We have to grow the economy. We have to make California more business friendly. As I said earlier, we have to make California a destination state. People will come here. If entrepreneurs know that they can make a living here, that they can pay their employees fairly, that they can make a decent return on their investment, they will flood back to California. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have to start. There'll be a time of kind of when things kind of come to a stop and then head in the other direction. But we have to get there, and we have to get there soon. We have to lower taxes. We have to lower the regulations. We have to make California an attractive place where the businesses will come back, the Walmart distribution centers, the racetrack that I get nailed for so often that was passed by unanimous vote of the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, and everybody wanted it except for a handful of environmentalists, the same people that drove the Walmart distribution center out. We have to have those businesses in Merced County. That's what I would do. I would try and coordinate and make the business environment in Merced County get so our people would have jobs, so they could support themselves. Thank you. Mr. Gray?
Well, thank you for the question.
Hello, time out. I'm sorry, but this room exceeds the fire code, and it only supposed to hold about 60 people, and we have more than 60 people. So they asked me to please move the entire debate to the Leisure 111. So if you please, yes.
Yeah, we're done since here we go.
That should be fun.
Hi guys. We're not going to be able to take you with us over to Lusher. There's no way for us to get the trolley car down there.
Yes, there is. It has wheels.
Yeah, but we don't have an elevator to get us down to the stage.
Go real well on yourself.
Unfortunately. And this
Elevator. You do not need an elevator downtown.
I apologize, guys. There's no way I can do this.
Steve, how are you? Have a great.
Sit up in there.
Nice to make your acquaintance. Thanks for what you're doing. Appreciate it. This is my wife, Katie.
This will however be videotaped.
That was I remember when you came in to that one earlier at
Sorry guys.
Woods Ranch. We were there for that for the Steve Cover here at State College.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, we came in with a group working on the American with Disabilities.
Is that voice recording too?
It's still recording. Come on, let's go.
I
You
have.
guys can join us?
Oh yeah, we were.
I hope we can set this thing up fast.
Wait for us to take
I need to leave at least right there.
You need any help, Cameron?
I thought it was gonna be like that, you know.
Alright.
Should we
I
take
know,
the...
so I got good notes and I recorded everything.
Yeah.
That voice records too.
Oh yeah, it's a video record. Of course it was recorded.
It wouldn't hurt to take it.
All right,
Yeah,
let's go. To adventure camera.
How did they know that? He's just doing his job.
He counts really fast. All right, I gotta set up quickly. Still recording. Camera. I know shortcuts, and I'm more faster than these humans. Are they going around? Why are they going around? Foolish humans. Pardon me, excuse me. There we go.
Is that where you are?
Yes! What?
What's up? You know, he in the
Cut that
debate.
out.
No, when he in the debate, we about to go see Jim Costa,
Not Jim Costa, Jack Mosley, and Adam Gray.
Jack Mosley, and Adam Gray, Wrong People. This is take 2.
You know you're actually, you know what you're saying when you don't know what they're talking about. Anyways. This sucks. I need to be in our power to make this thing work. But I don't think I have power. Huh. Look at that line. That is quite the line. Yeah. What to do this?
Well, I'm glad someone had that board thing so annoying. Like,
Good day, my kindas. So we're in lines, huh?
Yes, we are.
Was that? I heard bad hair day.
I said I'm having bad hair day.
Hello, Robin.
Thank you very much.
Going around. Oh, nice. There we go. I need power. Like now. Come on, camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had a full-time position. Yes, and then also.
I made it. Okay. This is not gonna be good.
Maybe sit up in one of these chairs right here and just.
I mean your power. That's my main problem right now.
Okay, so I think this is pretty much almost everyone. So why don't we just go ahead and pick up where we left off. I apologize for any inconvenience to both those in the audience as well as our 2 candidates. So thank you for your patience. So anyway, would you like to answer that question, Mr. Britt?
And as I recall, the question was, first of all, how do you represent the community well? And, there is a challenge to representing this particular assembly district because it's hard. The district, the 21st Assembly District includes Merced County. It also includes a good portion, almost half of Stanislaus County. And so that includes communities like Los Banos, Merced, Patterson, Ceres, Modesto. So there's quite a bit of territory, a lot of miles to cover between all these communities. And I have offices both here in Merced, downtown, right next to the Golden Iron Restaurant, and the old train station. And I also have an office in Modesto at 10th Street Place, where the government center, where the board of supervisors and the city council members. And those are opportunities, places for people to come and engage my office and my help with services of the California government. But in addition to that, my office also does office hours in all of the communities. So we find a government building or location, and I send staff out there or myself whenever I have the opportunity, if we're not in session. And we just spend a couple hours and we broadcast that through email, or the newspaper, or other avenues, so the public knows, hey, if you've got a problem and you can't travel to Modesto or Merced, we'll be here on this Friday or this Saturday or this Thursday, and we'll be here for a couple hours. Come by, let me help with whatever the problems or questions or concerns that you have about that. And that's an important part, because part of the job of the assembly person, the state legislator, is to help make government work for you and to help you access that. And when you run into problems, it's my job to make sure we fix those problems. And so I make every effort to get out there. I also make my email and my phone number readily available to folks so they can reach out to me directly if they can't get the answers they need from my staff. So that's an important question and an important part of the responsibility of an assembly member. Now, how we can make government work and California work and do things for the economy, I'm going to go back to talking about investment. We need to build the roads, the dams, the things that are going to allow for growth. We need to invest in our community colleges, in our UCs. One of the greatest economic drivers you can have is a University of California in your community. And people that have represented this community for the last 3 or 4 decades fought extraordinarily hard to get a University of California built in the Central Valley so that we could deal with some of the issues that have plagued us like the poverty that stuck with us, the high unemployment rates? How can we bring new industry and innovation into our community? You know, it is not a happenstance or that Google and Apple and all of our companies that have been such great successes for California are surrounded by universities. Those are connected items. And we need to make those investments here, and we did. People fought, we got a university built against the objections of legislators, frankly, from both parties, from other parts of the state, who wanted to just grow UCLA, grow UC Berkeley, grow others. But we fought to get one here, and we got it. That's a major opportunity for us, and it's already yielding results in just the short years that it's been here in our community. So, you know, we've got to change course. The last decade, with the recession and the challenges to local and state and federal government, we've made huge cuts. And that's resulted in higher tuition. It's resulted in no growth for our universities and our community colleges. We're not building bridges, we're not building roads. And how does that affect us? When we go to recruit companies, I spent a great deal of time this past year working with Tesla. Anybody read about that? We read about Tesla moving to Nevada and how this is a California company that we lost, and that's something certainly we didn't want to do. Well, we worked to bring them here to our district, either in Patterson or at Atwater, at the former Castle Air Force Base. And ultimately, one of the determining factors on why they didn't make that investment out in Atwater was that we didn't have the transportation infrastructure in place to connect to Highway 99 and I-5. This is part of the distribution chain, and they've got, Tesla has investments in Fremont, they have investments in the northern San Joaquin Valley, and the connectivity to those transportation corridors is extraordinarily important. Well, we're in the process of building the Merced Atwater Expressway and building the Campus Parkway out to the university and creating a transportation loop that gives access from those points to the major transportation corridors. Well, that's important when you're recruiting big investment from these types of companies like Tesla. So we've got to work that much harder to make those big investments. We've got to pass the water bond on Tuesday, and then we've got to go back to Sacramento and negotiate a transportation bond that gets some of these projects built right here in the Central Valley so that we can get new companies and new opportunity. And we need to go back to Sacramento. We need to make sure that we fight to increase funding for the University of California, for the community colleges, for the CSUs, so that we can grow those campuses and the opportunity that's going to come along with that.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second question? Yes, right here.
My name is Diane Obery, and I'm the Student Success Coordinator for the RN program here at Merced College. And my question is, I'm going to make it a little wordy. In 2010, I was hired here through a grant called the Song Brown. In 2012, I was terminated. Though I still work part-time, the grant did not fully fund my position. So now I'm working, I actually applied to another job because since that time I've been part-time because there are no grants, and we have a wonderful grant writer, but California isn't providing grants for the colleges for instructors like myself. As an RN and getting these students fully educated and supplemented for those who have weaknesses, my position is very important. As a part-time, it's very hard, and I always work more than part-time. How are we going to get these grants back again? Because I went to Sacramento, and even Stanislaus didn't. There were many colleges who were not fully funded again. And so my question to both of you is, what are you going to do about these governmental grants that paid positions like mine, that now I'm having to go out and look for another job because I don't have benefits?
Thank you very much. Mr. Gray?
Well, I'm going to continue to fight to restore the budget cuts as a starting point. You know, we restored some of the money in this past year's budget from some of the deep cuts they've made over the last 10 years. And we need to continue to do that every year as the economy rebounds, as government has more resources available to it. We need to reinvest. I mean, it's my absolute number one priority because I think it's directly connected to the economic success of our area. And you're absolutely right, we've defunded a lot of these grant programs. I've actually gone a step further than that and introduced legislation. Both years now I've introduced legislation for funding, grant seed money, basically through a grant to UC Merced for the planning of a medical school out there. We fought for grant money for nursing programs here at Merced College. And I'll continue to fight for something called the PRIME program, so we can bring physicians in. That's additional grant funding. But we have to both get new grant money and restore the funds that were in some of these programs prior to these deep cuts that were made. It's just, it is to me, it's the number one thing we can do to restore economic vitality and success to our area. So I appreciate the question, and I'm fully supportive to continue to raise that issue every day in Sacramento.
Well, we've got it's a Prop 98 that ties educational funding to the economy, to the general fund. We need a bigger pie. Our pie, the economic pie that is California, has shrunk. And it's shrunk because we have been practicing anti-business legislation. So we've got to do the things we did, as I said earlier. So many of these problems are tied to the economy and the fact that we have to make California a business-friendly state again, grow the pie, grow that slice of Prop 98. We also need, I mean, I was, okay, I'll talk about Prop 30. I was not for Prop 30, but it's the law of the land. From what I understand, we're diverting that money and it's not going to the classrooms. We need to stop that. If it's going to be the law of the land, we have to spend that money where it was designated to go, and that's the classrooms. So that's the answer. As to so many of these problems is we have to grow the economy. We have to make California a destination state again.
Okay, further questions? Right here.
Jack, this question's for you. I'm a student here at Merced College. Are you for or against providing financial aid for students?
Yeah. I am for individual responsibility. I mean, I put myself through school. I never took out a loan. I never got a grant. My wife did the same thing. I have no problem with the state helping students establish themselves with their education, establish themselves in California. It's not a problem. We've got federal loans that are available. There's all kinds of private grants and money that's available for kids to get their education started. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with things that I keep hearing about, people that register for classes, get their check, and then drop their classes. That's not right. That's taking money out of somebody else's pocket that needs it. So I would be for curtailing that practice, but in terms of the state helping people with loans to get their education started, I don't have a problem with that.
To keep things balanced, Mr. Gill, would you like to briefly provide an answer to that question?
Sure. Well, I fully support financial aid for students. I think government-funded financial aid is important. I support the middle-class scholarship legislation to increase access. I support Cal Grant funding, and as can probably be taken from my earlier comments this afternoon, I support more of that. We ought to be doing more to provide more opportunity for young people to get the best education possible in what is one of the finest public university systems in the world. And so I would respectfully disagree with Mr. Mobley and his position. I know when asked about financial aid, he said he's not for it, for government financial aid, and I think it's an important part of what government does to provide opportunity and invest in our young people, which is our greatest asset.
Okay. If you can keep your questions brief and to the point, I'd like to call on the next person.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, over here.
My question's for Jack. My understanding is that we have regulations because there's certain things that are profitable for businesses to do that aren't necessarily profitable for the community, like dumping of waste in the rivers. Before we had the EPA, our rivers used to catch on fire. So I'm just wondering, what exactly are you planning on getting rid of in terms of regulations?
Well, for example, a friend of mine, Ben Wells, who has moved to Texas, he used to own the Chevrolet dealership here in town. he had to comply with no fewer than 5 different agencies that often had conflicting regulations dealing with the way that he painted cars. So he found himself many times being in compliance with the state, when he was out of compliance with the feds, when he was in compliance with the county, and out of compliance with the city. So he basically had to decide who he was going to make mad. Things like CEQA. As a county planning commissioner, there's many times projects come in and the only considerations are for species, plants, those kinds of things, and there's no human element to consider with CEQA. Those are just some of the regulations that I think that we need to modify or curtail.
Thank you.
Mr. Gray, is there any regulations that you would like to do away with or answer that question?
I got a couple of comments to that. One, I chair the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, and the purpose of that is to provide government oversight. And I always make this point because I think it's an important point to understand about government. You can't write the perfect law that is applicable forever and requires no oversight. And what I mean by that, you don't start a business. I'm sure Jack didn't start his business, hire his employees, write an employee manual, and then never show up again. I bet you Jack showed up every day, maybe 7 days a week, holding employees accountable, making sure the business is running right. And that's the same thing that government officials need to do for you. They show up every day and hold government accountable. And oftentimes you hear this accusation or this assertion made that there's all this regulation. It's terrible. Well, let's keep in mind, regulation is why we have clean drinking water and we can breathe the air, right? The regulation is why when you go buy a plumbing part at Lowe's and you go to install it, it doesn't have a high content of lead. That's what regulation also does, right? So it's a balance of holding agencies accountable so they don't go overboard. They don't, as Jack pointed out, have duplicative or conflicting regulation with different agencies. And that's important why you got to have a representative that you elect that's accountable to you, watching over these agencies, holding them accountable, and making sure the government's working for them.
Okay, further questions? Yes, in black.
Hi, my name is Antoine Hubbard, and first of all, for the past 2 years, I've been very pleased with our representative, Mr. Adam Gray. I'm a student at Merced College, started an organization in the community called SOUL, Straighten Out Unjust Laws. As Dr. King have always said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Mr. Mobley, I see you in the community, I speak to you all the time. I saw your platform, everybody have their own opinion, but I do have this one question for you. First of all, financial aid, students that get a check and drop out, one bad apple don't spoil a whole bunch. Sure. People do have issues, medical issues, whatever issue. People are human, students are human. Second of all, you run your own business. Being African American, as you see, we're lowly represented here on campus. That's why I come in at. I try to always see to it that we come abroad with justice when it comes to diversity and racial issues. The community of Merced have always carried that problem. It's gotten better with our current leadership. I have some friends apply at your business for employment all the time. You rarely hire African American. That's your preference. No, that's okay. You don't have to defend it. That's it.
No, wait a minute.
That's
Wait.
your preference.
Are you accusing me of being
I'm not
racist?
You're accusing myself. I'm addressing.
Okay, just if you can ask the question, please.
So my question is this right here. In Sacramento, what would you do economical wise to make sure that this community is represented across the board when it comes to jobs, issues, gangs, violence that Merced is playing with right now, and especially racial diversity when it comes to economics and employment?
Well, let me start out with, I kind of resent your veiled insinuation that I run a racist business.
You said
No, you said it. I've had managers that are African American.
Excuse me, Antoine, can you let him answer the question, please? You put it out
I've
there.
had managers that are
You
African
ain't gonna tell me
American.
I'm putting words in his
I've had-
mouth.
Excuse me.
I didn't accuse you of being a racist. You can be a
Excuse-
chief
Antoine,
it doesn't matter.
excuse
You're
me.
a human being. Go ahead.
Excuse me, can you please let him answer the question and interrupt?
Well, don't tell me our citizens are racist.
Excuse me, just-
I'm not stupid. Now go ahead.
Sit down.
No, you sit down.
Oh, that's on campus meeting.
There you go now. Sure. No, but first, wait, I just want to say that
Let him answer the question,
he
okay?
is answering the question, but he don't tell me to sit down. That's racist.
Let him answer the
Wait a
question.
minute, that's racist.
Okay, can you please answer the question?
Yeah. You don't have to answer the question. No, you don't even have to answer the question. Let me address it to Mr. Gray. What are you doing in Sacramento that things seem to be getting a little bit better in the community at Merced? We have a big gang violence thing. I have several African-American families that are losing kids in the streets of Merced, being shot down, hanging out in the street, not because they want to be in the street, but when they try to become economically employed, when they're applying for jobs, they ain't getting them.
Thank you. Mr. Gray?
Well, thank you for the question, Antoine. It is a very, crime is linked to poverty, as we know. And we have to address opportunity for all these young people out there who are turning to a lifestyle because there's no opportunity for them to get a good job, to support their family, to do these things. And that's why we got to support these big investments. It's why we got to make more financial aid available so more people are in school. It's why we got to build projects, whether it be a dam, a high-speed rail, an expressway out in Hatwater that put real middle-class jobs in play. It's why we got to invest in a higher minimum wage, something we did this last year. We voted on that, we put that in place. Folks are going to have more dollars in their pocket to spread around this community to help with their families, right? It's why we've got to re-up the higher education budget. We did that in this last budget. And it's why we got to go back to Sacramento after getting this Prop 1 passed and fight for a transportation bond that's going to put these projects in place that's going to create high-paying, middle-class jobs where people can support their families, because the best way to address crime is to address poverty. And the best way to address poverty is invest in this community, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, yes. Hold on a second, please, hold on, please, thank you. Please, if you're going to ask a question, you cannot interrupt speakers. You have to let them answer, and that's not going to be tolerated any longer. So if you're going to ask a question, please let them answer, otherwise you're going to have to leave. Would you like to make a comment to that?
I'm going to answer that question. I mean, he left already, but in my business, we have one color, it's yellow. We have one sex, and that's neutral. I have managers who are African American. My business is run by women. My business is run by women right now. It's run by Hispanic women, it's run by Caucasian women. I have supervisors that are Hispanic. I have supervisors that are Asian. I mean, we are a melting pot in my business. I resent being told that I'm a racist. I do not, when somebody comes in and applies for a job in my business, Dr. Martin Luther King, a great Republican, said, he wants to judge people on the content of their character, and that's what we do. If you come to me, I don't care if you've got a college degree, I don't care what your educational level is. My two managers, one of them is a single mother, the other one is a mother, and neither of them have college educations, and they have my business in their hand. There's nothing that turns my crank more than to have somebody come in to my business, like this one manager that I had, Dave. He thought he would be underemployed his whole life. And he came to me after working for me for 5 years, and he's making a decent salary, he's got a nice house, and he said, I can't talk anymore. But that kind of attitude is what is tearing us up.
Yeah.
We have to get past that. We can't bring that attitude, continue to bring that attitude. We don't have it in my business. I don't tolerate it. And I'm sure Adam feels the same way.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have another question? Okay. Over here on the far left hand.
I just have a lot of questions, getting a lot of mail from both candidates, and I'm watching TV like everybody else, and reading the newspaper, and one of the articles last week we talked about IEs and money coming in, trying to affect our race from outside the district. And I was just wondering how exactly IEs have affected the race, and what exactly an IE is, and how is it that they can spend these unlimited sums of money here, even though they're not from here, they have no connection. So, if you just explain the IE process to me.
IE's independent expenditure. An outside entity can spend money on pro and con about a candidate. The candidate, his organization, can have nothing to do, no coordination, no snide remarks like, why don't you hit him here, or hit him there, or bring this up, or bring that up. I have benefited, and I've said publicly that I appreciated the effort of the people that have spent money on IEs that have benefited my campaign. That is the extent of any coordination, any thought of coordination between my campaign and the people that are spending this money. I don't talk to them. I'm as surprised as anybody when I open up the mailbox, or I watch TV, or I listen to the radio. I don't know what they're doing, and I shouldn't, and I don't. That's what an IE is.
Well, this is a hot topic in this race, and there's been, I think, 2 or 3 newspaper stories that you referenced about it. And the issue is in the way financing of campaigns work is you run, raise money, and there's contribution limits. Right? Jack has contribution limits, I have contribution limits. Candidates, parties